present herself in just a second. Before I do that, I want to make sure that you guys can actually hear us and we're not just talking to ourselves. So if you could just tell me in the chat function that you hear me okay. I see a couple of you guys are typing, which is good to hear. Hello, Paula from Sweden. I'm very happy that you hear me loud and clear. Fantastic. Thank you guys. Thank you, Sudhar-san. And if at any point there's any problem, feel free to tell us in the chat. And also you can use the chat to ask questions, although you should do so near the end because we'll address questions in the end. So thank you guys for answering. And as I said, my name is Dave. I'm from examPAL, and I'm going to let Sehar introduce herself. Do you hear me? Are you with us, Sehar?
Yes, thank you so much, Dave. Hi, everyone. I'm Sehar Khanna, and I am the marketing manager for South Asia for GMAC, which is Graduate Management Admission Council, which is basically the owner and host of the GMAT exam and the NMAT exam, and even the EA, which is executive assessment. So these are the three assessments that we own. And I actually manage candidate outreach, test prep, relations, prep products for South Asia market. And I'm really happy to answer some of the questions that you guys have on GMAT. So we can actually begin. But okay, one announcement that I want to make before we begin is that there are going to be lots of prizes to be given to select students who answer some questions related to GMAC or GMAT. So do wait for those questions to come up. We're going to ask them towards the end.
Hope you guys are as excited about that as I am. So thank you guys for being with us. And this is an unusual webinar. We really don't have many of these. And the point of it is to get the people who make the test on the line with us and ask some of the most pressing questions that you guys, the students, have. And that's what we've done. So really, this is going to be sort of an interview in which I'm only asking the questions, but not doing most of the talking. And we've lined up some of the most pressing questions that students have sent to us. And without any further ado, let's just jump into it. And so the first question I want to ask you and as a representative of the GMAC is one about section order that we hear a lot from students. And basically there's students that are saying, doesn't matter in which order I take the different sections. Is there a strategy? Does it depend on my personal skills? Should I do the one that I'm better at earlier or actually the one that I'm harder? And we're interested in what you guys think about this basic question of section order.
I think it's, first of all, a great question. This is something that we get very often from students when we also participate in a lot of college events or, some of the webinars also. And to actually answer that, it's very subjective. It's something we don't prescribe a particular order, but I can actually show you some data which might be useful on strategies. So basically what happens is that it's very subjective to how you want to approach the test. Some people might want to start with a section which they are strong in, and some people might want to start with a section where they're slightly weak in, depending on whether you want to start with a fresh mind onto a stronger section, or maybe you want to warm up a little. And to warm up, you don't want to, you need some time to warm up and then give in your best to a strength section. So it really depends. It's very subjective from person to person. Now, the good thing is that you have that choice. So of approaching whichever section that you want to first. So earlier you had to give GMAT in a particular order. Now you don't have that anymore. Now you have the choice of giving quant or verbal first and then following it up with IR and AWA. But best would be to give a lot of practice tests and actually understand which order works for you the best. And with these mock tests, you'll understand where you're scoring high, which particular section, if giving it first or giving it later, helps you for a higher score. So frankly, the answer to it is it really depends, but it's important to make a strategy. So don't, on the day of the test, don't that time decide. I know you're given 2 minutes to decide which order do you want to attempt the test in, but don't do that at the test center. You must practice beforehand and have a clear strategy in mind. And also depends on the kind of person you are, whether you want to give when to warm up a little, you take that time, or it's you want to start uh, fresh. It's you just arrived at the test center, you're fully kicked about the test, and you want to start with a fresh mind. So it depends.
Um, Thank you for that. There's a lot of it's really interesting to see, because I think a lot of times when students ask us that, for many people, it's a question that we try to answer kind of based on intuition and stuff like that. And it's interesting to see because you guys have the inside perspective of and the data of how the test is actually built. So
Absolutely. I'd actually also like to show maybe one more pie chart that is what from data that we get all across all the test centers, all the test takers. And if you see this data, the blue part of the pie chart is people who give quant first. So about 53% people give quant first, and 32% people give verbal first, and then there is a 14% people who give AWA first. Now, this is a very global perspective that you're seeing right now. In India, it varies. In India, generally, it's about 50-50. So about 47% of the people give quant first, 45% people give verbal first. In US, it's 50-30. 50% people give quant first and 30% people give verbal first, and the rest 20% is AWA. In China, it's 66% people give quant first and 24% give verbal. So China is a very skewed market in terms of those people who are comfortable attempting quant first, but US as well. Most people attempt quant first, like I said, 50%. India it's about 50-50. So my point here is that it all depends on what you're most comfortable with, but we just wanted to put some data out here for people to understand what are the trends that are presently there in test takers and how they attempt the test.
so that was our first question. And guys, if you have any follow-ups, we're going to keep moving because we have a lot of stuff to get to. But you are welcome to try and write questions down, and we'll try and get to them later if we have time. So let's keep moving. I have a different question for you. This one had to do with the beginning of the test, so let's talk about one that has to do with the end, or at least the end of the section. What happens if I don't have enough time to finish all of a section, whether it's verbal or quant? What am I better off doing? Just taking wild guesses for the last 2, 3, 4, even 5 questions, or might as well just leave them blank and not even waste any time on that? What's the best thing to do?
So again, this question is something that a lot of candidates ask. In fact, there is an article also on MBA.com. So for all those who are interested in greater detail, should also read through that article. It's written by some of the psychometricians who actually are the makers of the GMAT exam. So they have actually written on what are the best strategies and when should you guess and when should you leave blank. But overall, if I have to answer this question quickly, I would say go with guess first. And why I say that is if you see this data on the slide, the graph that you see on the left is actually for verbal, and the graph that you see on the right is quant. They're very similar in terms of the lines, how the orange and yellow lines, how they're moving along the graph. But let me get into some details of what this graph shows. So the x-axis of this graph is actually the number of questions that you are facing some kind of difficulty with or a challenge with. Like Dave said, should I like those 4 to 5 questions in the end, is it best to leave them or should I guesstimate because time is less? So ideally, you should manage your time really well. And I'm sure practice questions, practice tests, etc., should help you do that, so that pacing is done in such a way that such a situation doesn't come where there are some 5 questions and you don't know what to do with them. But if such a situation arises where you have to make a choice of whether you should guess or completely leave them blank, then I would say just refer to this data, which says that ideally guessing is much better because when you see this, like I was saying, the x-axis here is the number of questions that you're facing. So it could be from 1 to 5. And the y-axis here on this graph is actually the potential score. So the impact on the score that you would see is on the y-axis. And the orange and yellow lines are actually different abilities. So orange line is people with the first one is, say you start with a 40, with a some 37 or 38, say, and the orange line is actually for people who have guessed, whereas the yellow line is for people who have left it blank or just omitted. Then there's a high and medium. So obviously when you start with a high, let's look at the left graph and the first line there. The one when you see the graph moving, you will see the orange line, which is the guessing line, is always higher than the yellow one. That means that you will definitely be getting a better score when you guess. Now, when I say when you guess, you're unsure whether I'm talking about you guess them correctly or incorrectly. Here we've assumed that you have guessed incorrectly. So that means that if you guess a question, an answer wrong, even then your score will be slightly better than if you plan to just skip it. So skipping a question or not answering a question definitely leads to penalties on your score. So if you want to avoid that, make an educated guess. Right now, I showed you how a high ability student should definitely make a guess. Even a medium ability student should make a guess, because there also you see the orange line is slightly higher than the yellow line. For a low ability, the graph that you see, the line that you see on the bottom most one, where you'll see the yellow line is slightly higher than the orange one, where yes, leaving questions is slightly better off, because a person with low ability, there you know that overall the score has been low. Overall, maybe some more easier questions have been put up towards the end, and because overall the adaptive nature of the exam is such, and because of that, if you're not answering those, or if you're guesstimating those also wrong, that's leading to a depreciation on your score. So, but overall, if you see, of a medium and a high ability student, guessing is always a better option. And this is across verbal and quant. So I won't waste time explaining the quant. You can see it yourselves. In quant particularly, the gap is even higher. So for a student who is attempting a quant section, definitely one should guess if he's a medium ability or even high. Nowhere you will see that omission helps you. So, so don't skip questions.
That's such an interesting point and an answer, specifically the point you just made about how it's better to do that even when you get them wrong, is really something that I, for one, at least wouldn't have guessed on my own. I would have in the past recommended students to do the same thing, because obviously if you guess, you have a chance of 1 in 5 of getting it right, whereas if you don't guess, you're just going to get it wrong. But what you just said about how even if you get it wrong, it's still more worthwhile is really surprising, at least to me, and it really drives home the point of not leaving questions blank.
Absolutely.
Cool. So it's fun to get kind of such a definitive and also data-driven answer to a question that really does bug a lot of students. And let's keep moving. So this one is much more general and doesn't have to do with test taking strategies, but more about kind of what is this test even for. For some of our listeners, I'm sure this question will be one they've already answered in the past, but for some it might be one that they're really wondering about, maybe they're wondering whether to take the GMAT or the GRE or other exams out there. So basically, since you guys are the ones who write the test and who are in touch with everyone in the world about this test, it's really interesting to hear your perspective on it. What is the GMAT for? Is it just for an MBA? Is it for other things? Is it the best thing for an MBA? How do you see the role of the GMAT for a young person out there?
Again, great question. Actually, there's a myth that's been going on for years because GMAT was just it. There's a myth that people say that GMAT means MBA, whereas that's not true entirely, because GMAT definitely helps you get to an MBA degree through a school, obviously, but it's also open to a lot of other program and choices, and that's why I wanted to just put certain boxes to these programs. And what I've done is I've kind of made two slides. One is on opportunities that GMAT opens up for undergraduates or pre-experienced candidates, and the other one is more for experienced candidates. So here actually there are four buckets that open up. One is STEM programs. Again, it's just that GRE means STEM and GMAT means MBA. It's no more true. So there are tons and tons of STEM programs in the US and even otherwise across the world where a GMAT score is valid. So these universities will definitely accept it. And some of these that I've put on the slide are very select ones. They're the top ones, select ones. If you want the entire list, obviously it's all available on mba.com. But I wanted to put these four categories up there for you to understand how it's not just MBA, but there are different routes that open up through a GMAT score. Then there are, other than STEM programs, there are also deferred programs wherein there's the famous Howard 2+2 program. Then there's Yale, there's ISB. In India also they offer it's called a Young Leaders YLP program. So there are lots of universities that are offering these deferred programs where when you're in your final year of college, you basically get admission. But you don't join until you have worked. So you get admission for sure. So you have a seat blocked after you've obviously taken, after the interview process and all the rest of the formalities that the school has related to recruitment. But after that, you're expected to work for 2 years and then join, the program for MBA. So that's called deferred admission. That is also open for pre-experienced candidates. And there are business masters programs, which is the bucket that you see on bottom left. This is actually for people who are interested. Again, pre-experienced candidates maybe have a work experience of 6 months to a year, or maybe even freshers can actually go for MIM programs. These MIM programs are Masters in Management, and they're very popular in Europe, HEC Paris, LBS schools. So all of these, they are really the top schools for MIM programs, University of St. Gallen as well. So many, I'm maybe not, I can't name all of them, but do check out mba.com to see different options that you have, because this MIMs is really coming up, which is equivalent to an MBA. But it's just that a year less. So these MIM programs are typically a 1-year programs, and with great ROI as well. So I would say that do consider these programs as well. Other than that, in India particularly, I've listed down, so for all the Indians here on the webinar, there are full-time flagship programs in India which accept GMAT because it's a ratified test in India. It's when I say ratified, it's AICTE approved. And these are some of the schools, top schools, ISB, SPGen, and Great Lakes, etc. So there's a whole list of some 50 top schools which accept GMAT in India as well. So these are some 4 buckets that I made, which is other than a regular MBA. These are the things that you can definitely look at for pre-experienced candidates. Obviously, for experienced candidates, the options, I'm sure you all know, there are global business schools. There's, all of these names on the left. Then there are Indian business schools as well, where you have the IIMs, be it Calcutta, Indore, Bangalore. All of them, they accept GMAT score for an executive MBA. So that's also something that you might want to consider. So these are working professions. Obviously, you need a 4 years work experience. In some cases, might 3 years also, or 2 years also might do, but most cases 4 years plus experience would be needed. And these are the options that GMAT opens up for you guys. I wanted to also show you a trend that's basically across all programs. How is it going? So the top graph that you see, the bar graph that you see, is actually comparing 2013 with 17 because to see a trend, you really have to see at least 4 to 5 years. And here you see how the 2-year MBA is slightly going up. And then there's a 1-year MBA, part-time MBAs, and then executive MBA, online MBA also. But what you also see in the bottom part is business masters. So all of these, like I spoke about, STEM programs, lots of analytics programs are actually gaining a lot of traction. Masters in data analytics, masters in business analytics. All of these programs are gaining a lot of traction from candidates, and the job prospects are also great. So beyond an MBA, I think it's also important for you to see what are the other options. Maybe specialized masters is something that might interest you, and do look for these things. The information is all available on mba.com. I'm sure there are other sites also which give a lot of information on which program and which school is offering that particular program. So do go through the curriculum, etc., and see how it works for you. Yes, Dave.
For that. I think especially it was interesting to hear kind of in detail the points about India, because I can see we have quite a few people with us from India today. So thanks so much for that. And here's a follow-up question that's really connected to it. What is the GMAT good for, not in terms of the world of academia, but is it good for rather in the business, in the job world? Does it play a role at all, and if so, what, in corporate recruitment, in getting a job, and in what job you get? What do you guys have any data on that?
Again, it's a great question, and we do a corporate recruiter survey actually every year, and I can show you the results of last year, wherein we asked about 931 companies. So we usually take about 1,000 companies, and that's why, and that's when we publish results towards the end of the year or the beginning of the next year, wherein what are the employers or what are these companies talking about GMAT. So GMAT as an exam, we all know it is a test of abilities. It's a test of quantitative, verbal, IR, AW. These are the skills that GMAT is testing is anyway something that companies also want to test you, because really, be it communication or be it analytics, etc., which is tested in quant and IR, and communication, which is tested in verbal, that's something that we're using every day in our work. So companies actually, 30% of them, when I say overall, 27% is the accurate percentage of companies who said that we actually ask the GMAT scores to our candidates, because it helps us understand what their ability level is, because GMAT, they recognize GMAT is a test which is not just meant for B schools, but also for companies to understand what is the aptitude of a particular candidate. So it makes their recruitment process much easier. So 30% of them approximately ask, and these are across all sectors. Finance companies obviously is most prominent there. So about 39% or 40% of finance companies ask a GMAT score. And this is across the world data. This is not just for a particular region. Followed by consulting, manufacturing, energy utilities, product services, technology. So this is the split of how much a particular sector company gives importance to GMAT. Like I said, this is global data. So what you see here, now the left side of the graph gives you data across regions. So in Asia, particularly, 33% of the companies ask for GMAT score during recruitment in your B schools. In US, 28%, followed by Europe and Latin America. The graph that you see on the left is actually the type of companies, because we make sure that the corporate recruiter survey that we do is across different size and different sectors of companies. So here you'll have a mix of Fortune 100, Fortune 500, family owned, startups, publicly traded, different companies. And we see a very good mix companies here, and giving all these companies giving importance to a GMAT score. So come to think of it, it's not just till your B school admissions. It actually goes on during it. It'll help you during your placements, during your interviews, and discussions with the companies as well.
So much. I see there's some discussion in the chat about how to put it in your resume, so that's also interesting. But here's a related question, which is harkening back kind of a little bit to an MBA, which, as you've made clear, the GMAT is not only for, but still is one of the main things people do with the GMAT. So I'm interested in your perspective for people who might be kind of similar to the one whose experience is on the screen right now. Someone who's thinking who's thinking that they're a bit young and they're not sure if an MBA and hence the GMAT is the right step for them right now. I'm interested in, from your guys' perspective, if you have any insight into what is the right amount of experience, and is there such a thing as too little experience for one to try and move towards getting an MBA?
So since now we have, different programs that have come up, like I spoke about masters in management, STEM programs, specialized masters, business masters. So, now there are such plethora of options that, you don't have to restrict yourself to, just saying that, I need X amount of work experience, only then I can go for an MBA. But I would say it really depends on where in life you actually want to pursue, or where in life you think you're now ready to go for post graduation and going for a degree in management. So I wouldn't say that there is. I can't really prescribe, or we as a company don't really say that you should work for these many years and then go for an MBA, or maybe you're too young, or maybe you should do it immediately after college. So I don't have a clear answer to that. But what I'd say is it really depends. Schools are looking at a very diverse profile. So for a business master's program, typically it'll be younger audience because they don't need work experience. The program is such they don't need work experience. So that's why you'll see mainly freshers or undergraduates with no experience applying for business master's programs. Median age, obviously, because of that, is much lower. It's only about 23 years, and it's it'll be about the ratio of the women and men is about 50-50. I mean, there's not much difference, but it depends on which program. So if I talk about business masters, this is what you see. If I talk about MBA program, the median age would be slightly higher because you have work experience, which is at least 3 years. Some might have 2, some might have 4, but this is the median years of experience that we see for a full-time MBA program. Here you'll see the ratio of men and women a little skewed, but it all actually depends on the application pipeline. So don't go by which gender is preferred, or there's really nothing like that. The schools are looking at a diverse class. When I say diverse, it's age, gender, culture, the kind of work experience you have, the kind of learnings that you've had because of the work experience you've had, your life experiences in general. So schools are actually looking at a very diverse class, so that it's a very enriching experience for everyone who's there in the class. So every profile, every story that you bring with yourself to the schools, they would want to hear what's unique about you. And it really doesn't matter whether a business master's or an MBA, whether you do it immediately after college or you actually work. It all matters as to what you're bringing into a class, and how are you enriching the class, basically.
So much. I can see already just from looking at the chat, this is a topic that is high on the list of what is interesting our listeners. There's a lot of questions about it. So hopefully near the end, we'll have some time to maybe address some more questions on it. But we have a lot more to get to, guys. So bear with us. And I want to shift gears again a little bit and jump back to the test itself. And I want to ask about a section that sometimes confuses a lot of people, the integrated reasoning section. And basically, the question we hear from students time and time again is, if the integrated reasoning isn't part of the total score, which together with the AWA, the essay, it isn't. So if it isn't part of the total score, why should I care about it? So I'm interested in hearing your guys' perspective on the significance of the integrated reasoning section from the perspective of the test taker.
Great. Again, another question that we get a lot, because what the score that you see that flashes on your screen after you give the test is actually your quant and your verbal score. And after about 2 to 3 weeks, you get a final scorecard which has your total score, which is your quant and verbal score, and along with that, you have your IR and AWA score as well. And during preparation, many students have this question: why at all study for AW and IR when it's not included in your total score? Because you think that schools, maybe you're assuming that schools would just look at your quant and verbal, and they wouldn't be interested in additional data points. But let me clarify something to you. Many schools are actually looking at your IR score. Schools like Harvard, Columbia, etc., they actually are very interested in your IR score, because this section, which got added in GMAT, was something that schools felt that there is a need for our test to help them understand a candidate's ability to analyze data and graphs and pie charts, because that's something that you will need to do it in your workplace a lot. So it's very relevant to the schools. Some of the schools, I won't say all of them. Some schools, I know ISB, which is one of the leading schools in India, they do not look at your IR score, and I'm sure there are many other schools like them which don't look at your IR score. So it's not relevant for every school, but yes, there are some schools that look at IR. Another point that I wanted to make is it also depends on which program you're interested in. If you're interested in a master's in business analytics, master's in data analytics, or master's in financial planning, courses like this, which are data heavy, these kind of courses during your interview and your recruitment process, schools will definitely ask for your IR score, because it's very relevant to the program that you're going to study, that you've applied for. Another data point, actually, the graph that you see on the screen is from the corporate recruiter survey again. So here, companies actually found it when we introduced IR. Like I said, schools wanted us to introduce IR so that they have a score and they can test candidates on their analytics particularly. But along with that, even companies actually were in favor of us including IR in GMAT. Why? Because it's certain skills that IR is testing. It's very difficult for companies otherwise to test. So what you see right now on the graph, on the right side of the graph, these are the skills that generally corporates are testing you on. They're testing you on how good are you with your quantitative tasks, how good is your data analysis and interpretation, your coachability, reflection, oral communication and presentation, written communication, comprehension and logic, listening, problem solving, managing self, and working with others. So these are some of the skills which are standard across the world, which companies are trying to test you on during their recruitment. Very important thing to note here is that the two skills that are highlighted in this orange box is data analysis and problem solving. These two skills, which are also outlined in red in the graph, are actually very high, which is it's very difficult to find. The requirement may vary from different company, but they are very high on difficulty to find by the corporates. So a score definitely, an IR score definitely helps a corporate understand how good you are with these two skills particularly, which helps them make decisions faster. So that's the importance of IR, not just by schools. Like I said, some schools consider it and treat it as important as your GMAT score, but even companies are looking at your IR score along with your GMAT score to understand how good you are with data and analytics, wherever the role is obviously um, analytics heavy.
Cool. Thank you very much. I hope that question will kind of put to rest any of the students' questions about the IR. And again, if not, you guys are welcome to try and ask us some follow-ups later on. So here's a slightly more general question I have for you. So if I want to if I want to, sorry, improve my score, if I'm not happy with my score, what is the time frame in which it is realistic for me to substantially improve my score? So, for example, if I want to improve my score by 100 points or a little bit more, is a month a realistic amount of time to do it, or am I just better off not not even trying if I can't put in another 2 months or so, or even at a more extreme option, is it just not realistic to improve by such a large degree? How do you guys see the realistic time frame of what it takes to improve and when it's worth retaking and when it's maybe not worth pulling the trigger and taking a test again?
Frankly, it's very subjective because I don't know in that 1 month, maybe one candidate, gives maybe some 3 hours to study, and the other one is maybe not, is giving 3 hours in a week. And the first one is giving 3 hours a day. So I don't know how this person is going to use that 1 month to study, but preparation definitely helps. Practicing mocks, practice questions definitely helps in understanding how your pacing is, in understanding what are your strength area, what is your weak area, and preparation for sure will help you. Let me just give you some data around first preparation, and then maybe something around repeat testing also. I'll get back to that slide. In terms of preparation, I would say this is self-reported data that you see on the slide by students who have been preparing for GMAT and what GMAT score they got. So it's a simple survey that we ask how many hours of preparation went into GMAT and what is your score. And there's a very clear correlation between the number of hours people have given versus their score. So the graph that you see on the left, which is the green bars going up, they're getting higher and higher as the number of hours are increasing, and the score is also improving. So it does help definitely. Um, Little right, the graph that you see is region wise. So Asians tend to study a lot, so they typically give about 100 hours to GMAT preparation, and some of the other people from different regions give maybe fewer hours. So it all depends on how far you are maybe from your education in school, because frankly GMAT is just testing you on 10th class maths and English. So it's really, maybe few people are out of touch, and it's been really long that you're not in touch of fundamentals of algebra or probability, etc. So for them, maybe more practice is needed. For people who are closer to the school years, that means they have maybe fewer work experience years, but are closer to their school studies, so they're more in touch with the fundamentals and basics taught in school. Maybe they don't need so much time, but it's very subjective. It depends on how clear your fundamentals are. Because it really is just, GMAT is just the application of concepts. You don't have to really learn any new theory. It's just the concepts that you've learned earlier in your school. You just have to apply them in those questions. The pie chart that you see on right is, again, very self-reported data. Again, 60% people who we asked spend at least 50 hours preparing for the exam. And those who score at least 600 study average 122 hours. So don't go by these numbers as is. It's not that, for everyone who needs 600 needs to put in 120 hours. Some people might need much lesser time. Some people even give GMAT without any preparation. Some actually prepare for 3 months, 4 months. Some might even take longer. So it's very subjective. It all depends on your knowledge, your skills, and how well your how your concepts are framed in your mind. So how good you are with them. I also wanted to show you some repeat testing data. So this is basically how definitely giving us test again helps. On an average, global average, 30 points improvement is seen in people who have taken the GMAT again. It also depends from region to region. It depends on your score. Obviously, people who have a lower score band um, see a major improvement in their score when they practice, because there's a lot of scope for improvement. People who are a 700 plus, when you see the graph on the right, the the bar graphs are not very high, because with a 700 plus it's very difficult to improve your score tremendously, because there's very less scope in there. But yes, when you see 500 or 590 or even 600 to 690, there is immense scope for improvement with practice. If I have to give you some data, it's again something that this data is as per the test taker data from their first attempt to the highest score that they got in any other attempt. So it really doesn't mention which attempt it is, but this data is just next, whichever attempt gave you the highest one. Typically, 30 points improvement is seen globally, and 40 is seen for Indians, and Chinese see about 56 points. So, yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, well, you guys heard it here first. Retaking the test, on average, helps improve. And the even better news is that it helps improve a lot for those of you for whom the original score is low. And just at this point, I will mention, I'm not going to do this a lot during this webinar, but I will mention that on examPAL, we have a guarantee of a 70-point improvement. Exactly for this reason, because improvement is possible if you sit down and study in a good way. I think just to add a little bit more context, for when students ask us the question of whether they should retake, there's often a preliminary question which needs to be asked of them, which is, what did you do the first time around? Because it makes a big difference if you got a low score or a score you're not happy with, whatever it may be. If you've already studied in a very comprehensive way, that's a very different situation than if you just kind of took the test without studying much and you're not happy with your score. In that latter case, I would say your preliminary score really isn't very indicative at all, and it's very possible to get a completely different score. And in the first case, it means it's going to be trickier, and it's going to mean that you have to do things you didn't do the first time around. So that's kind of my perspective from the test prep field on this one. So unless you have anything more to add, I'm going to move on to our next question. And this is about score cancellation. So let's say, for example, that I got a certain score, say it was 600, and I think I can improve. I think I'm going to, if I take the test again, I decided to retake it. I listened to your answer from the last question. I decided to retake it. And is it possible after I retake it, can I then go back and decide to cancel one of, say, the earlier score? And even more in general, if you can kind of address sort of the question of cancellation, which I think some students find somewhat confusing of when they should decide to cancel a score and when they shouldn't.
Yes. So GMAT has actually very candidate friendly features now. Some of the changes were made in 2017. We've actually also introduced some more changes to make the exam, the test, very candidate friendly. Not in terms of the structure of the test, but in terms of these features about canceling, rescheduling, etc. So these are the few features that we are trying to make as candidate friendly as possible. Specifically for this question, if someone has taken a test before, you can cancel it at the test center, but not too many days after. So actually, the policy that GMAT has is that you can cancel the test as soon as you attempt the paper. You'll be given 2 minutes after your screen will flash your test score. you'll be given 2 minutes to decide whether you want to accept the score or you want to cancel the score. If you accept the score, then the score will definitely be sent to the schools, to the programs that you have selected. And that selection actually you do before you write the test. So let's go by the sequence so that there's no confusion in your mind. So you actually go to the test center, you do your basic security check, you start, you decide which order you want to give. Before you decide which order, you actually give in your information, your name, email ID, etc., which you also can do on mba.com at home, but some information like your which program that you want to send your score to. And you should know that 5 programs are included in the fees itself. So you don't have to pay anything extra, but these 5 programs can get your score free of cost. After you select that, you actually attempt the paper, the test. After the test, you'll be flashed your score. And that score, you need to decide whether you want to cancel it or accept it. If you cancel it, then the schools will not get to know that you've how many attempts you've given, etc. So you don't have to worry. This is also a change that happened recently. Earlier, the school used to get a C, uh, highlighted, but now they don't. So they don't have your score, the score that was cancelled. But in case you've accepted because you got a great score, then the score will automatically be sent to the 5 programs that you've selected. You don't have to do anything about it. So the GMAT at the back end will automatically send your score report to those schools in 3 weeks. So that's what happens. In case you want some more time to think, and you can't decide at the test center whether to cancel or accept it, then actually you can also within 72 hours decide to cancel it. So you don't have to worry. So GMAT gives those 72 hours to decide whether there is a small fee to it though, but you do get those 72 hours to talk to your mentors, your coach, etc., whoever you want to speak with, or you want to sleep over your score. 72 hours within that you can cancel it at $25. So that's what it takes to cancel your score. In case you've accepted it, there is absolutely no confusion there. You can also reinstate your score. So in case you took the GMAT after 2014, and you canceled but now you've changed your mind and you want to get that score back, and you want to send those programs that you had selected there, you can actually just reinstate your score at $50, and automatically the schools or the programs that you had selected on the test day, those programs are going to get your score. And don't worry, they won't come to know that you canceled it or you reinstated it. They won't have all this information. They simply get a scorecard. So none of the other information is sent to the schools. One of the features that recently, like I said, we are trying to make GMAT as candidate friendly as possible. And effective September 26 September this year, so just a month back, we made some changes to the rescheduling and cancellation fee. Now there are tiers made. So earlier there was a flat fee for cancellation. Now there are actually tiers that we've made so that as less as possible there is damage to the candidate's pocket. But these are some of the changes that we've made recently. So there is obviously this information is available on mba.com, but I just wanted to mention that according to which tier you fall into, whether it's how many days you are prior to the appointment, depending on that, there'll be a certain fee that you need to pay for rescheduling or canceling. And these tiers should help you so that you can plan your test much better. And your no-show policy, though, remains the same, but definitely appointment changes, etc., can be modified accordingly. Thank you.
Much. So I'm gonna pick up the pace a little bit because we have one more important question that I want to ask you, and then I want to get to the prizes you mentioned at the beginning. We're gonna jump to those, so we'll have enough time. But first, this question, which is important. what are the chances for someone who, say, has ADHD on the one hand, but wasn't properly diagnosed to get special accommodations? And if you could use that question as a a jumping off point to talk in general, maybe a little bit about the topic of special accommodations on the GMAT.
Sure. So GMAT actually tries to be as accessible to everyone as possible. So there are definitely accommodations that can be made at the test center. These accommodations could be different, varying, the disability or any challenges that a person is suffering from. It could be in terms of additional testing time, it could be additional breaks, or we also have additional software tools or readers for visually impaired people. So it depends on which particular challenge that a person is facing. But all you need to do is just fill the GMAT test accommodation request form. It's available on mba.com, and it takes about not more than 2 weeks, but though the time there would be 30 days written, but it takes about a week or two for our team to get back. All you need to do is just submit a medical or clinical report saying that you have this particular disability or challenge. And at the test center itself, when you arrive at your scheduled appointment date and time, these accommodations would be made, and it should go smoothly for you. So Pearson View also gets involved, which is our delivery partner. So all of these accommodations are made at the test center for people with disabilities.
Great, thank you, and thank you for the answer. And it's also great that you guys do all these accommodations. So listen, we only have a few minutes left. I know we wanted to have some questions that you ask me, but I think we'll skip that and jump straight to the quiz that we're going to ask you guys. So you want to take the reins here and tell us a little bit about what we're going to be asking?
Sure. So there are four questions that we're going to ask. They're just trivia about GMAC or GMAT exam. And whoever knows the answer, just type in this chat window. So what we're going to do is the person who answers first, and the answer is either accurate or it's closest to the accurate answer, we're going to give them official prep material. So all you need to do is just type in your answer on the chat window, and the first one to answer, we're going to ask email address to be written here, or you could just send it to the examPAL team, and then we'll get in touch with you with the tool, with the official prep tool that we want to give you as a prize. So
So
get
I
set.
just
This is
want to I just want
first.
to jump. Sorry, I just want to jump in just for a second because I see that you guys there are a lot of sort of side conversations happening in the chat. So if we can just you guys are already answering the question. That's fine. So
Oh
anyway,
yes.
try the side conversations. Let's pause them for a few minutes, and yeah, and now guys can answer the question, which I see you've already started doing.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. Okay. A lot of fives and eights from what I'm seeing, right?
Yes, lots of five and eight. But I see Salma, who has written five and eight, which is basically the answer to the question. 5 times you can take GMAT in a year, and 8 times in a lifetime. Dave, just help me if I'm not wrong. Salma is the first one to answer it. Correct?
I think that's what I'm seeing also. Cool. Good
Great.
job. I think you guys don't need to send us your email because we have it.
She would already have it. Awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll give it to Salma. Congratulations to you. Yes, you got it right.
Good job.
Get ready for the second question, everyone. How many schools use GMAT score across the world?
Ooh, that's a harder one, I think.
Yeah.
More options. And the answers are more varied, although I'm seeing a lot of round numbers, right? 100, 1,000, 500, all of them. That's an interesting question. Most of the schools, kind of vague, that might be correct.
Yeah.
2,406, that's not round. So if that's right, good job for you. More than 800. Wow. Okay, let's give you guys another couple of seconds to get your answers in. Don't answer more than one. Don't send in more than one answer though. We'll notice. And
I
I
see
think we could.
Dilip.
Yeah.
Dilip has answered 2,300. Yeah, it's about 2,300 plus schools that use the GMAT score across the world. Congratulations, Dilip.
Good job. How did you know that, Philip?
Awesome. Okay, now we'll show question 3. How many MBA and master's programs use the GMAT score across the world? So it shouldn't be just MBA, it's MBA and master's. So include all the programs that we spoke about even during the webinar. So
Okay.
this was quick. Who is 1_5 or 11 underscore 5?
Yeah, you're welcome to write your name here, although we have your email written down somewhere. But if you just want to tell us who you are, Saloni. Saloni. Cool. So
Awesome.
did Saloni get it
Saloni.
right?
Yes, she did. Yes, 7,000 plus programs use the GMAT score
Wow,
across the world. So congratulations, Saloni.
that's a lot of programs. Good job, Saloni.
And the last question is how many countries receive the GMAT score across the world?
Okay. 194 plus 115, 100, 21, 82, 75, 120, 53, 72. I'm seeing a lot of 110s.
Yeah. So, Dilip, you got this one also right, 114, but I think we should give someone else also a chance since you've already won um, for a question.
Wow. Dilip, where do you have all this knowledge from about the GMAT?
Yeah, I have no idea how does Dilip get this, but there's Anamitra. Anamitra, you said 115. Yes, so 114 plus countries use GMAT score. Dilip was also right, but we're just giving other people also chance since he's already won um, for a particular question. I don't know which one, but I for sure know that Dilip was one of the winners. So let's give this one to Anamitra.
Good job, Anamitra.
Congratulations to you guys. We are going to email you the official test material of GMAT. So you should have it in about a day or so. We'll give you the code or the key to activate that official prep material that you could use for your preparation and score well then. So all the best.
Great. Well, I hope you guys enjoy your prizes, and I hope more than that, that all of you that are with us have enjoyed this past hour with all of this really in-depth information that really you can't get anywhere else. It's not information that's publicly available. It's information from the inside of the guys who make the test, and I want to thank you very much, Sehar, for being here and answering it. I want to express my gratitude to you guys with introducing you to a pre-Halloween sale we have just for you guys that have signed up. If you go in the next 24 hours to examPAL.com and use the coupon code GMAC25 off, you'll get 25% of all your GMAT courses. So take us up on that offer, and you can keep asking us questions on examPAL.com. And basically, we're out of time. So I'm not sure we're going to have time for many questions. Although you guys can try it, you can try, and we'll see if we can answer one or two. And again, I want to say thank you very much to the GMAC in general and to you, Sehar, for being here. And if you have any final words you also want to say before we sign
Thank you
off.
so much, Dave. It was great interacting with all of you. I hope we could answer most of your questions that you had in your mind. And some of these questions were so relevant and so important for you guys in your preparation. I totally understand. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Dave and Karen. Thanks so much.
Fantastic. Thank you again, and thank all of you guys. I just want to add one last thing, which is I know you guys had some more questions we maybe didn't have time to get to, and I just want to add that at examPAL.com, even if you don't sign up to the course, you can just go there right now or at any time. There's a chat bubble in the right bottom corner, and you can just ask questions at any time, and we're there, and we'll be happy to um, keep doing a dialogue with you guys about the GMAT and answering any questions you might have. So that's it. I hope to see you guys on examPAL. I hope to see you guys in future webinars. Thank you for being with us in this hour. I hope this was helpful, and have a good one, everybody.